So I want to say thanks to everyone for joining us live for our updated Mass Medic virtual town hall. We're excited to have you here again, and so thrilled that you've chosen to spend your lunch hour with us. Shout out to Tim Anderson for the George Clooney profile pic. It's pretty awesome. So thank you for adding some some humor into this. But again, thanks everyone for joining us. We have a really fantastic program today, and I don't want to wait too long before kicking it off. Just a few housekeeping reminders. If you are not speaking, put yourself on mute so we don't have a lot of background noise. And if you have questions, please, we absolutely encourage them. Pop them into the chat bot, or you can use the raise your hand option. But again, yes, thanks everyone for joining us. And I'd like to turn it over to Joe Mullings, who's going to be our first speaker for the day. Joe is an incredible asset to our organization and a great friend of Mass Medic. I know a lot of you know about him and the work that he's done, and he's just a great person to have in our community. So Joe, take it away.
Thanks, Rachel, and thanks, Brian, especially. And again, big shout out to Mass Medic for carrying the torch across the world, not just Massachusetts in general. So I think it should never be lost on the audience that you've got here and across the world. So thanks for that. My contribution today is about the workforce, and some of you have been affected one way or another. And the other side too I want to address is those that are looking to build the organization. I want to share with you what I think is going to be happening based upon a lot of the conversations I've had in the recent past, as well as past analog models around this. So I'm going to jump into it and try and leave as much time for Q&A as possible. So the COVID-19 situation, basically what it's done is it's accelerated eventual outcomes in a number of theaters. It showed us what has been compromised, what is straight up weak, and what is strong and will probably carry through the other side. And about the world of work in general is what I'm going to focus on today. Two areas, the interim career opportunities for companies as well as personal careers, and the strategy that I would strongly recommend, and I've been sharing with everybody, what I call the 10-4-2 strategy for networking. Let's start out with LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the platform that you should be doing your talent access on. And when I use the word talent access, that talent access is access to talent in the marketplace if you're a hiring manager or a company looking to hire, and that's still happening quite a bit. And then talent access from the talent in the field. How should you be looking for new opportunities today, or maybe you're not aggressively looking, but you are looking in the near future? And with LinkedIn being 660 million people and growing online, and a very large cohort in the MedTech industry, that should be where you should be looking. Now, social and the use of social. Invariably, I have a couple different categories within the social field and the adoption utilization of it. Don't mistake social for duck lips and kitty cat videos that either your teenage niece or nephew ruined because of those duck lip pictures, or grandma was posting kitty cat videos on Facebook. Therefore, you've disregarded the use of those platforms at scale, that it's really silly social. It's not. It's a fantastic tool if used appropriately, especially as you build your team and your organization. The workforce makeup is changing very quickly, even before the C-19 crisis. Before the current rate of employment or unemployment right now, we had 160 million people employed in the US. Of those, 65% were full-time employees or permanent employees. 35% were interim or contract. You'll hear me use the word interim in collaboration with contract. But that's been the workforce makeup over the last few years, especially before we went into COVID. Interesting dynamic though. The average full-time tenure has been 4 years and falling, okay, so declining. Largest contingency, but has been dropping off from 4 years, indexing towards 3 years. The average contractor interim has been 2 years and climbing. So as you look at those, you need to realize that, sure, the bigger pool is perm, but the smaller pool, which is a third of the workforce, has been climbing, and it's becoming more usable, more acceptable. So it's a worldwide trend as well, not just in the US. So two markets, the same world of work, but the trajectories are in a different direction. And I'm setting this up right now and explaining to you why I think it's important that you look at it this way. When we look at contract and you're building a company, or you are looking for your next role and maybe you were furloughed or laid off, you've got to understand that the dynamics and the rate of technology and acceleration of technology in the workforce is changing so rapidly, it's hard for these organizations to keep up the speed. So they're going to be having to hire individuals who are able to immediately come in day one, no grass growing under their feet, and be able to solve some very specific problems. And that's very sort of commonplace in the MedTech industry. Most of you have very specialized skills. And I'm giving you guidance that if you were furloughed or laid off or are even looking, we're going to want to look at the interim business at the same time we're looking at the perm business. In the past, people have said the gig economy. Isn't that the gig economy? It is not the gig economy. The gig economy was a personal choice of individuals at that point in time. The current unemployment rate and the rate that we're running at and continue to accelerate is now really where the interim model falls, meaning that gig was a choice for personal lifestyle, places in the country you wanted to live, even industry specific. The interim model now is going to be driven by less jobs in the marketplace, therefore more people fighting for those jobs. And you, if you were stuck in a furlough or a layoff, did not choose to be where you are. But I'm letting you know that more and more organizations are tactically and strategically looking at hiring interim employees because it declares itself on the balance sheet from a financial perspective differently. And it also allows them a level of flexibility in being able to throttle up and throttle down that workforce or that employment on demand. And I will let you know that 50% of the time, they're converting those to full-time employees. There's one of the areas I want you to think about, because getting back on the field in a contract or interim role will serve you well to be able to convert it over to a full-time role. Here's the biggest issue. You go to a cocktail party, and a majority of people don't want to let people know they're embarrassed or they feel like it's clumsy or it's less professional that they're contracting or consulting or an interim role. You need to get over it. It really is the world of work. And I think over the next 3 to 4 years, especially in my seat, especially in the MedTech industry, you're going to see a larger percentage of strategic and tactical moves by startups especially, and the large players and the mid caps in between are going to become a lot more educated and a lot more tactical with how they're going to flush out their workforce. So don't be hung up on waiting to get back into the workforce in a full-time role if you've been bounced out for whatever reason. It's a very simple explanation, C-19 situation, everybody's going to know it. But those that embrace the interim pathway back to employment are going to find themselves with more opportunities downrange 3 to 6 months from now. It's just the world of work that we're in. So historically, HR has been, and I mean this respectfully, HR has been the place that hiring, identification of talent, putting out the hiring narrative for an organization, taking in the individuals who apply for opportunities, has been where corporate leadership, large and small, has tossed that function. Totally under-resourced, overworked, and ill-equipped with the tools. Any headhunter in the world who's a top 5 or 10 percenter is going to tell you HR dislikes doing search, dislikes hiring, and is more probably attuned, trained, and enjoys the internal employee development more than they do the acquisition of talent, the attraction of talent, and the landing of talent. And I think for the workforce we're in today, as the workforce gets settled and rebuilt, the smart leadership, executive leadership, is going to start to divide HR from talent acquisition and talent access, meaning you're going to have strategic leadership now held in such a high regard as they do the VPs of Reg, Clin, qual, operations, manufacturing, R&D, and how the specialization in each of those verticals, you're going to see that start to declare itself. HR will remain that super valuable asset in the organization once the individual is on board. The really intelligent players are either going to partner with a firm or bring the talent access function in-house and start to have the specialization in each of those verticals that are going to allow them to get access to the A players, whether it's an interim contract role or a full-time role. But currently, that is not the case in a majority of organizations. And again, overworked, under-resourced, and does not have the proper training and tools to attract in 2020, 2021 moving forward, the players that you need to attract rather than the ones who are just looking for a job. So look for that to be a very, very aggressive move by the forward-thinking organizations. Let's get into interim for a second, why it's valuable to organizations. Again, it's an on-demand hire, it's speed, flexibility, and capital efficiency. Those three characteristics are going to be the cornerstone for the next 12 to 18 months as companies come back online, get themselves out of a hole, look at their balance sheet, address their shareholders if publicly traded, or if private and venture-backed. Those are the three areas that we're going to overlay on all talent decisions moving forward. So that's actually a positive. If you're out of work right now or you're underemployed right now, you need to play to those three items as you look in the marketplace. So that's the company side of structure. Let me sprint now into a strategy of if you're out of work, if you're underemployed, and if you're just simply networking, which you should be, and everybody should have this wake-up call over the last 3 months. You should be networking aggressively now when you don't need it, because when you need to network when you need it, it's way too late. This is probably the most powerful approach and the best tool I can give you when you're underemployed, unemployed, or just networking. It's called the 10-4-2 ratio. Go out over the next 30 days, and I want you to identify 20 companies that you want to work for, work with, or partner with. Get those 20 companies on LinkedIn. And then I want you to look at all the directors and above in that organization, and I want you to follow them or connect with them online, so they become part of your ecosystem, at least from a connection. Then what I want, and again, all functions, design, development, quality, reg, clin, whatever it is. Then what I want you to do is once you have those 20 companies and each of the directors and above, I want you, as regular as you show up for your exercise, as you eat your bagel in the morning, as you show up at whatever it is you do, you brush your teeth, I want you to set aside 30 minutes every day, and especially 30 minutes to 60 minutes on the weekend. And I want you to go and look at what each of those individuals have posted online. And in this ratio of 10, 4, and 2, on every 10, I want you to like whatever their posting is. Out of that 10, every 4, I want you to have an intelligent comment on their post. Once in a while, you can give the icon thumbs up, but an intelligent response without overcooking it at a ratio of 4 out of those 10. And then finally, out of those 2, I want you to share that individual's post, and I want you to put intelligent editorial that supports a point they're making or something that they're sharing. Here's what happens. I don't care if you've got 28,000 plus followers like I do, or 12,000 like Holly does, or 142. Once somebody likes a post you put up, what is the first thing that you do? First thing you do is go, huh, who is this? And you go check out their profile. Now they do that repeatedly for you, respectfully, repeatedly. Suddenly you become part of their inner circle in their ecosystem on LinkedIn. I'd hazard to say that a majority of people are learning to respect their LinkedIn ecosystem and their inner circle of people who support what they post. You now have insinuated yourself into their personal and professional career life, and you've become part of their community tighter than you ever have before, and you haven't sent a resume in yet. Now, as you create your content and put out intelligent content, eventually, they will see it as well, because that's the way the LinkedIn algorithm works. And they'll start to see that you're adding value, giving back to the community, which is what we do, which TMG doesn't ask. We always just give back to the community. And now that you give back to the community and you're not even looking for a job, but once you do pick up your head and you are looking for a job, you can then reach out directly to those connections on LinkedIn who have watched you give back to the community before you've asked for anything. And now that you're going to have an ask, in other words, maybe interview or send your resume to them, now that you're connected online, there's no HR in the middle of it. And now you've got a much warmer, or actually friend, in your corner as you go ahead and apply for a role, or at least lean in to see if they may know somebody who's networking. So that's your 10-4-2. And again, 10 likes, 4 comments, 2 shares. I always leave with this. Do not mistake the tool for the user. A basketball in the hands of LeBron have a different ROI than in Billy Bob. Same tool, different use. That's what I got for you today. Any questions?
Awesome, that's great. So everybody pop your questions into the chat bot. Brian, feel free to jump in. I know you likely have a lot of questions as well. I really think it's important what you mentioned about specifically the social media. I know as a younger person, I always tend to look at social media and say this is for cats, right? It's for weird videos, and it's not even a thing anymore. I'm really interested to hear your perspective, and we got a question previously about the difference on types of LinkedIn memberships. Do you need to have a sales membership? Do you need to have a premium membership? Do you need to do these things, or can everything you're saying to do just be done through a basic membership?
You can do that through a basic membership. I don't know all the products out of LinkedIn, but I know that strategy works, and I've been sharing it with the people that I do consulting with and coach. So it certainly does help and gives you a different look if you've got a recruiter license or some other license. But from the ongoing network and the access, at this point in time, it shouldn't make a difference at all in regards to how your feed appears, how the algorithm treats it. There is a difference on the back end on your search ability, though. But for the most part, everybody is accessible if you identify the company and look for the people who are in the company.
Okay, another question. What's your hiring outlook for med device in 2020, 2021?
Oh, I think it's as robust and promising as ever. Look, there are some companies that went out of business because of C-19. And I hazard to say, as a general statement, they were going to go out anyway. I think it just accelerated what was going to happen. I do believe, though, in the venture community, you're going to see less A-round investments, because the investors, the VCs, are going to be keeping their dry powder for the later stage and choosing which 4 or 5 of their 10 entities in their fund they're going to keep alive. So you may see a little hesitation there. But on the flip side of that, in the startup world, I believe you're going to see new investment vehicles coming back online. I also believe that you're going to see tremendous, tremendous investment on the digital side of the business from others that are going to be coming in from outside. I do forecast that within 5 years, Amazon or Apple, it could be Google, but primarily Amazon will be one of the top 3 healthcare medical device players in the industry. And as you know, Amazon has got a reasonably large footprint and growing up in the greater Boston area. And I also believe on the digital side of things, outside 510Ks and PMAs, you're going to start to see them leaning in aggressively from acquisitions of technologies in the workforce.
Great. Any thoughts on Walmart jumping into that? I just asked because I know they've been toying around with so many different opportunities for a really long time. Anything interesting there, you think?
I think on the downstream side, you might see Walmart jumping into that. But when, I come to companies like, Amazon from a pure data play, pure data perspective, telehealth, the ability to deliver while you're sitting in your house on your iPad, and maybe you're 60 years old, maybe you're 15 years old, maybe you're 82. I can get my doc-to-doc teletherapy. I can immediately answer it right there on the tablet. It can appear to me the next day, either it's a DME, a durable medical equipment, or a pharmaceutical. And then the other side of that is, if you think about from the capability of actuarial data analysis, I can tell probably what your BMI is, what you order from me, how many rolls of toilet paper, are you regular, what exercise equipment. I mean, the information at hand that Amazon has in order to do everything from data analytics, predictive analytics on a device in the OR, ICU, CCU setting. And they are, AWS is the leading supplier of that cloud platform. I just see them being so insinuated. I do, and in the sort of outlets, whether it's a Walgreens or I don't know what it is regionally up there. I know there's a couple, but I see them walking into the full healthcare continuum from patient visit all the way through the continuum of care down to the delivery of the therapeutic. I do believe they will highly likely be in the same mouth as Medtronic and J&J in the same conversation in less than 5 years.
Interesting. Okay, so I have one come in that's a private question, so I'm going to summarize it for you. But someone's asking about how to address the issue of being seen as an in-between stage. So worked at a very high level for a few months, then was laid off. So companies now don't want to hire at that higher level because there's not enough experience. And then other companies don't think that they'll be happy at that lower level because they have worked. Any thoughts on kind of how to not downplay your resume, but understand your resume's strengths?
Yeah, so good question and very relevant. So look, ageism's going to come in. If you were 50 plus and you were furloughed, downsized, right size, or cut, you're going to have a bigger challenge than a 30-year-old. One is ageism's going to come in. Two is you probably had a higher salary. So coming back on board is going to be more expensive, especially from a perm full-time employee. That's why I'm recommending you really position yourself to come on in an interim basis. So you can either go W-2, you can go 1099, you can start your LLC. You need to position yourself at getting back on the field, solving problems in an interim basis. Because if you're only going to put your oar in the water and you're not going to relocate and you're only going to look for full-time employee and you're only going to go 10 or 15% plus or minus on your past salary, you're threading a needle there. And the longer you're out of the market, the more challenge you're going to have. So don't allow your own narrative in your head to limit what the market possibly may have in store for you. Because right now, that concern, while it may be valid, it may not be, but that's your fear getting in the way right now. What you need to do is say, why not me, and position yourself. And I'd be happy, Brian and Rachel, to come back on and give a longer session on how do I position myself specifically to re-enter the market if I'm falling in that 50 plus or less, and what are the methodologies I should use to get in front of as many people. But the first thing I would do is the 10-4-2, and then in the next 30 days, if Brian and Rachel can get me back on, you'll have some traction and you'll have some data to ask me more specific questions.
Ooh, take a look at your mute buttons, folks. Somebody is unmuted. Sorry, just a little background noise.
No problem.
Okay, so I'm going to give you one more quick question, and then I will let you go because we do have a lot of content. But can you comment, and this is obviously not a quick question, on how working may change in the next 1 to 2 years? There's more teleworking, more digital health. How do you see that transforming how employees work, and how does that influence the way they hire?
So it's a great question. It leads up to the previous one. Look, there are going to be organizations hiring that you should look at outside the greater Boston area because they're going to be open for telehealth. We've got a big contract going on right now. I can't tell you who it is. They're tied to the coronavirus. They're an in vitro diagnostic company. They're looking for 40 full-time QEs, quality engineers, to work from home in order to help get one of their product platforms over the line to address rapid testing. That would have never happened before. So as you look at opportunities for reemployment, look outside the greater Boston area because more and more organizations are going to accept and have to use a telecommute or a tele-engagement situation. So I see that happening. And on the other side of things, I think you're going to have a lot more flex time. So if you're only looking at a 1 hour commute, you may want to look at a 1.5 hour to 2 hour commute because you may only have to go into the office 2 days a week. And you could decide on your lifestyle if that's acceptable or not.
Joe, thank you. I think we were probably getting enough questions to keep you here for a whole hour, but I think having you back on in the next couple of weeks would be fantastic to talk about a lot of these things. I think there's a lot of interest and a tremendous amount of opportunity for people to try and take advantage of the situation and make something that wasn't necessarily pleasant as positive as possible. So I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for all of this information, and we really appreciate you joining us.
You got it. Be well, everybody. Best wishes.
So we're going to go ahead and switch over to our next speaker, who is another great person to have on our call. We're incredibly excited. I know a lot of you have probably seen Sherlock Biosciences in the news lately. They have been doing a lot of exciting things, and we are so thrilled to partner with them. They've recently received an EUA from the FDA for their CRISPR SARS-CoV-2 kit, the first FDA authorized use of CRISPR technology. And they're doing some incredible work in launching an innovation lab here in Boston with a grant to try to promote some of that work and opportunity for folks in our neighborhood that they're doing. So I'm going to let Will Blake, their CEO, talk more about that. And I will turn it over to you. Will, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thanks, Rachel, and thanks for the promotion. Actually, I'm the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer. No worries. Thanks to you, thanks to the mass medic community for the opportunity to introduce Sherlock, talk a bit about our technology, our new FDA authorized test, and some of our initiatives associated with growing and expanding the organization. Really appreciated Joe's talk, and we are one of the organizations that are looking to accelerate expansion, and so hopefully in the next few minutes here we can pique the interest of the mass medic community. I did want to share a few slides, and so I will try to do that if I am given permission here. Great. Perfect. So, just briefly, Sherlock Biosciences is an engineering biology company driving toward the development of breakthrough diagnostic platforms using tools from CRISPR, from synthetic biology, to achieve a vision of improving health at home and beyond, and effectively bringing molecular diagnostics really anywhere that they add value. We're led by pioneers in the fields of CRISPR and synthetic biology with proven capability of bringing these breakthrough platforms to market. At a very high level, I wanted to introduce our platform technologies, our namesake Sherlock, as well as our synthetic biology platform Inspector. Both of these are technologies that enable detection of nucleic acid, RNA or DNA. With Sherlock, that target nucleic acid activates a function. And I'll talk a little bit about that technology that is part of our FDA authorized test for SARS-CoV-2. With our Inspector technology, that target nucleic acid actually generates a function. And I'll talk about these distinctions and how we're leveraging these to develop these breakthrough diagnostic tests. So Sherlock's an acronym. It stands for Specific High Sensitivity Enzymatic Reporter Unlocking. And with this cartoon, I'll just walk through the process. Nucleic acid, so for example, SARS-CoV-2 viral genomic RNA is extracted from a sample, a respiratory sample. Target sequences within that genome are amplified. More copies of that target enable very sensitive detection via a CRISPR-Cas complex that is programmed to specifically detect regions of that viral genome. Once those regions are detected, the target is cleaved, as in a lot of the applications leveraging CRISPR for gene editing, but that cleavage activates a function with these specific Cas enzymes that enables those enzymes to cleave nucleic acids in the surrounding vicinity. That collateral activity is leveraged with nucleic acid reporters that, when cleaved, give a fluorescent signal. So this process enables very highly sensitive, highly specific detection of nucleic acid, the ability to discriminate based on single nucleotide changes. The technology, and specifically our Sherlock CRISPR SARS-CoV-2 test, has limit of detection comparable to many RT-PCR methods, able to detect a little over 6 copies of the virus per microliter sample. We are detecting 2 regions within that viral genome to enable high specificity. Our test includes a human nucleic acid control for the process. We demonstrated in our tests for FDA authorization 100% agreement with contrived clinical positive and negative samples and no cross-reactivity to tested human coronaviruses as well as other respiratory pathogens. We're very excited about this milestone, both for the company but broadly for CRISPR, and are moving forward to make this test available. Our second core technology, Inspector, also an acronym for Internal Splint Pairing Expression Cassette Translation Reaction. Similarly, we are detecting nucleic acids, either RNA or DNA, but via a very different mechanism. So with Inspector, we have nucleic acid probes that hybridize to that target nucleic acid sequence. So they're programmed in 2 ways. One is to hybridize to a target. That hybridization enables a process of sequence assembly, effectively covalent attachment of those probes and the formation of an expression cassette. And this is the second aspect of programming. That expression cassette enables us to produce anything that we've encoded. And so this enables you at a very high level to transduce this nucleic acid hybridization event into any encoded output. So this can be an enzyme that catalyzes a reaction that gives a color change, gives a fluorescent readout, gives a luminescent readout. It can be an antigen that's detected via, via lateral flow strip. And so it provides a lot of flexibility, but most importantly, the technology doesn't require any amplification of a target nucleic acid. The signal amplification occurs via the processes of transcription and translation, whereby one formed expression cassette makes many, many copies of an RNA, which is then translated into many copies of that encoded output, which in the case of an enzyme catalyzes a reaction to further amplify that signal. The process occurs entirely at ambient temperature, so there's no requirement for cycling as in PCR or maintaining a fixed temperature as in as required for isothermal amplification technologies. And so broadly, our company's leveraging these technologies to respond to pandemics like coronavirus. We very rapidly, after deciding to develop these diagnostic tests, developed a protocol and reagents. Within a week of deciding that we were going to develop tests for SARS-CoV-2, after obtaining genomic sequence, we were able to very, very quickly, within a week or 2, have a test that was functional. We built that into what is our CRISPR SARS-CoV-2 kit, now authorized by the FDA. And as I mentioned previously, we are working to make that available. We're also working in parallel to address the point of care market with a cartridge and instrumented system that's currently in development and tech transfer with a partner, and are now ramping up our efforts and accelerating our efforts to develop an at-home test. And this would be a simple, disposable test, like many of the antibody tests that are currently out there, immunoassays, but would be specifically detect nucleic acid. And we are an organization that are focused on accelerating these efforts, and we're hiring. We've established an innovation lab to both improve the throughput of our current CRISPR SARS-CoV-2 test, but also to accelerate our efforts to develop an at-home test that would also be applicable in low resource settings. This effort is supported by a very generous award from Open Philanthropy. we are looking to bring on folks, both contract and permanent, in areas of assay development, sample preparation, lateral flow development, human factors engineering, program management, synthetic biology broadly. Very excited to drive toward our mission of improving health outcomes worldwide, including our website and our careers email, careers@sherlock.bio. Welcome any in the mass medic community who's interested, and again, thanks for the time and the opportunity to introduce Sherlock.
Thank you so much, Will. That's great. You obviously mentioned some of the key points that you're looking for contract as well as permanent. Are you doing all your development in-house? Are you working with partners? How are you advancing so rapidly? Because like you said, you kind of turned on a dime and, COVID struck and you took a different path. So how are you moving so quickly?
Yeah, that's a good question. Firstly, we have a fantastic team. I think our ability to turn very quickly to developing this FDA authorized test really took substantial effort, both, in terms of the organization and the team. We had to build capability, quality systems, operations, commercial, all of that came together very quickly, given just, how fantastic this team is. And we are continuing to grow. We do need to build out our capabilities. And this is where we've looked to the community to start to bring folks into this innovation lab, recognizing that a lot has to happen to enable an at-home test, a robust, distributable at-home test. And we're very, very committed to, making that happen.
That sounds great. Where is the R&D center going to be?
So we are in West Cambridge near Alewife. So we've set up a satellite lab that's within stone's throw of our current lab. And so we have now 2 facilities, both roughly a street apart, near the Alewife T-stop.
Oh, that's great. And can you give us a little insight on the EUA process, right? We've had a couple of groups kind of talk about their experiences. Was that, something you guys felt was particularly straightforward? Has there been any talk about what happens after, as you're working through this process? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It was a process for sure, and it was one that was new to us as an organization. Putting in place quality systems, ensuring that we had all of the necessary components to complete these studies, was a process that was new to us. And, strong leadership within the company, again, a fantastic team, very committed to meeting this milestone, all came together. I think it speaks to the robustness of the technology as well. The fact that we were able to get through these studies relatively rapidly, and get authorization relatively quickly. All of this, I think, speaks to the strength of the organization. Rachel, what was the second part of your question?
I think it was just, have they said anything about what happens kind of after the EUA expires, right?
Yes,
What's the plan there?
Yeah, it was just a small part of my, a bullet point on the hiring slide. So the kit that we are going to make available very soon, we see an opportunity to further improve that kit, and specifically focusing on throughput. It's a technology that requires just what is a fairly standard, heat block to maintain temperature, and a fluorescent plate reader. And these tests, the detection occurs in a 384 well plate, and so it has the potential to be incredibly high throughput. And we're working on, making the test more accessible, expanding the types of instrumentation on which this test is authorized to function. But also driving to simplification of some of the steps so that we can achieve a much higher throughput with this kit in clinical labs and hospitals.
I've heard a little bit recently, and I don't know if this has anything to do with what y'all are doing, about just some concerns that people have when developing vaccines, that the virus is kind of diminishing a bit too quickly. Is that something that affects your progress at all, or do you guys have this kind of lockdown already? Doesn't really matter what path the virus takes?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It is a virus. Viruses propagate and survive by changing, right? And so when we started our efforts, there were, it started with, a single genome sequence, then there were 10. When we started our efforts, there were maybe on the order of 500 sequences. When we moved through authorization, running our, inclusivity, in silico inclusivity cross-reactivity studies, there were maybe on the order of 8,000, 9,000. Now there's probably over 25,000 sequences, all different. We selected regions of the genome specifically based on the fact that they're conserved. Our test involves detecting 2 specific regions of the genome to enable sensitive detection. And so we are, our test is certainly robust to changes in viral sequence, but that is a challenge, I think, broadly for vaccine development and for molecular test development.
Yeah, it's something to keep an eye on, obviously, and I mean it's just coming into the news, and yeah, really interesting kind of changes. One question from the audience: what other areas are you all looking at to deploy these technologies behind virus detection or beyond virus detection? Pardon me.
Yeah, that's a great question. We prior to shifting the majority of our efforts to SARS-CoV-2, we had a variety of programs for infectious disease testing, but also areas outside of infectious disease testing. So genotyping, applications in agriculture. It speaks to the vision of the company, which is to bring molecular testing really anywhere that it adds value. And obviously a lot of the focus is within healthcare, but there are broad applications outside of healthcare where molecular testing can add significant value. And so we're very focused on SARS-CoV-2 now, but these are platform technologies that we see as being broadly applicable. And a big part of that is delivering on what would be a incredibly impactful home testing, disposable molecular testing. This is something that's been a real challenge, but we see, our technologies, Inspector and aspects of Sherlock bridging the gap between where molecular tests are now, typically requiring some instrumentation, and where immunoassays are. They're low cost, simple to use, but lack the sensitivity specificity of molecular tests. And we're looking to bridge that gap with what would be at-home testing, leveraging Inspector and Sherlock.
Great. Okay, one last thing before I let you go, because I want to make sure the audience knows how to get involved. So if they're looking at the opportunities that you all have available currently, they can go to your website, or they can also go to MassMedic's website. So we have your jobs posted as well. If groups are interested in, getting to know you all better and potentially partnering, are you the person to reach out to? Is there someone else they should talk to internally to kind of chat about opportunities?
Great question. Yeah, so we do have a partners at Sherlock.bio, and I think the best first point of contact is our website.
Okay.
And then via those email addresses, they'll get to the right folks.
Perfect. I think that's great. I think that was all the questions from the audience. So Will, thank you so much for joining us and telling us about the exciting things you all are doing.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So we've got one more really great speaker. I'd like to take the time to turn this over to Marianne Picard from M2D2 at UMass Lowell. We asked Marianne to come and give an update on some of the grant opportunities that M2D2 has been working on, specifically the RADx program, which is incredibly exciting and something I know a lot of people have a lot of interest in. So Marianne, I will turn it over to you.
Sure, I'm going to go ahead and can I share my screen? And
absolutely.
Okay, I probably should have started at the beginning, huh? All right, so as some of you have probably heard, is RADx. It stands for Rapid Deployment acceleration and deployment of point of care technologies specific to addressing the COVID-19 crisis. It is a $500 million initiative that came down from the NIH. And M2D2, through its relationship with UMass Medical School, we are a joint program, UMass Lowell and the medical school. We are because of that, we're part of the point of care technology network through NIH. So when this opportunity became available, we were able to apply and were quickly included because of the vast capabilities in the program. The aim of RADx is to speed the development and commercialization of tests to rapidly see people who've been infected with the virus. This is a national effort. It's a bit like a Shark Tank in that the participants vie for a portion of the $500 million fund. And the overall goal is to be able to test all Americans by the fall. So we would all love to get back to some sense of normalcy in work and school and other large settings. And that is the specific goal of this program. This is what it looks like. Comes in as a call for applications. If there's a team further upstream from us who is sorting through all the applications. As of this morning, there are roughly 1,800 applications started and about 200 that have made it through the first gauntlet, if you will, into phase 0, where they're being basically like a Shark Tank deep dive process. And then you can see the process will move on from there. A whole team of development, commercialization, distribution, all the partners needed to make it happen quickly will basically be formed like a work team wraparound service type model to make this happen very quickly. So the response has been at least double what was anticipated. So you can imagine the pace of our life right now to try to get this to try to achieve this goal. UMass and M2D2, as well as the medical school, were specifically involved in the clinical testing aspect of it. So we're looking forward to jumping in very soon to speed up that part of the process. Oops. I'm not used to doing this on Zoom. I don't know here we go. The point of this is to, like I had mentioned, some large scale manufacturing plants where a lot of people work, where a lot of people go to school, large events, daycares, where people can be tested not once, can be tested multiple times throughout the day, and also for home use, if people can test themselves throughout the day. So there's a lot of aspects to a program this large. So these are some of the possible use cases that are being looked at, and the applications are falling right into these areas. So it's going, in that respect, it's going very well. This is the application portal where you can find all details around it. It is based specifically on detecting the virus. So nucleic acid, non-serology, that's being handled elsewhere. But so this is a very targeted program. This is the application portal, the website to get there. And if anyone has any specific questions at this point, happy to take them.
Yeah, Marianne, can you tell us?
That was a quick and dirty overview. So
that was great. Could you kind of explain M2D2's role in all of this? How are you all involved in participating with the groups coming in?
So with the groups coming in, we have our early job was to get the word out about the program. And through our activities, just from the NIH, Dr. Collins himself, and as you can imagine, a number of other partners, the word got out, and there's been, like I said, probably double the number of applications that were expected. So then from there, we're going to move into helping with the wraparound services that these startups will need to ramp up quickly. And then through our relationship, our partnership with UMass Medical School, the clinical trials piece will be handled there. And then it will be basically passed on to large manufacturing partners, even like rapid clinics will get involved in the processes that they use will be employed as well. So it'll be a whole team. They're basically calling it work packages that include a team, everything that these startups need to move quickly. So it can be very early stage. as long as it's extremely promising, it can be very early stage. And then even larger partners are invited to apply as well.
So from an ideal kind of candidate perspective, people looking to apply should have IP, they should have, you know, verified technology, they should have an idea with maybe a little bit of backing. What is kind of the sweet spot of organizations? You said if it's really promising, then super early is okay, but what's kind of that good fit?
So like super, it's like, so it has to be more than, it has to have some IP around it. Early is good as long as there's some really hard proof of concept data. If they haven't taken it any further, that's fine. Regulatory can be provided as part of the process. The whole EUA process can be handled through this, but it has to be some solid IP, some strong data, and it can be pivoting. It can be a platform technology that they're just pivoting to COVID-19. And so it's really strongly established for another application, and they're able to show very clearly that it can quickly ramp up for COVID-19.
And
so
for
that's why we're inviting anyone and everyone to apply if they think there's any applicability at all, and it will, you know, and then we'll take it from there.
And location, that was my next question. Location doesn't matter. They don't have to be Massachusetts based, or for this particular grant, they do?
They do not. This is
Okay.
This is national. Yep,
Okay.
it's in order to be able to test all Americans as quickly as possible. So it is across the country. We have many applications from all over the country, and yeah, I invite people to apply. And if you have any follow-on questions, you know, after this is over, don't hesitate to reach out.
That sounds great. I mean, I think I do. I'd love to dive deeper at some point into your slides on the target areas that they're considering first, but I think that might be a whole other conversation.
It is. That is, you can get into the science for an hour itself. Exactly what they're looking for. But it is antigen-based, nucleic acid-based, specifically for the virus. Serology is, you know, like I said, is being handled elsewhere. So it's very, very targeted and very focused, because they feel like both the NIH and CIMMYT feel like that will be the fastest way to get this testing, you know, to get it out more broadly and very quickly nationwide.
Great. I don't want to monopolize questions. Anybody in the audience have anything else they'd like to ask before I turn this over to the end?
Yeah, it was a very high level, but like I said, if anyone thinks of anything after, don't hesitate to reach out. So,
absolutely. And Marianne, would you be willing to share those slides?
Of course, sure.
Okay, great. So afterwards, I'll make sure everybody gets a follow-up email with the slides today to make sure that if you have any questions, you have the contact information for Marianne as well. But unless there's anything else, Brian, did you have any thoughts you want to chime in on, or we'll just end a few minutes early?
No, Rachel, I just think this was a fantastic program again. And thanks to Marianne and UMass Lowell, they've been involved in this response very intimately. And I keep seeing the work that they're doing over there. I think they should be commended for all they're doing. But it was a very exciting presentation with Sherlock and Joe Mullings. So great job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, thanks to everyone. This was fantastic. So have a great rest of your day, and we hope to see you for programming next week. Check out our events page. We have a bunch of great webinars coming up, and we look forward to seeing you all soon.
All right. See you then. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.